Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The Memphis City Council on budgets, Beale Street, taxes, and more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight by Berlin Boyd, Chairman, Memphis City Council.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here again. Along with Martavius Jones, member of the Memphis City Council. Thanks for being here. Yeah, absolutely. Evan Ford is member of the Memphis City Council and chair of the Budget Committee. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Along with Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. And so you all have a lot going on. It's kind of an amazing, just a little bit, yes, just a little bit. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with Bill and get into some of the budget issues, and then we'll go from there into all kinds of other issues you all are dealing with.
Okay.
Well, right off the top, it looks like we are on schedule for all the final votes on the tax rate and the budget at your next meeting, the June 6th session of the City Council. Chairman Ford of the Budget Committee. Tell me how this has gone. $680 million budget here. Our tax rate right now is at $3.40. What is the new certified rate?
The new certified rate, to my knowledge, is about $3.27. For those that don't know what the laws are, when you have a recertification, just in case, for example, you have individuals who come out and they look at how much your house is worth. If the appraisals go up 10 to 12%, you have to initially go down on your rate because you cannot make money on the budget per se.
It has to produce the same amount.
You have to equalize it, yes. But when I look at this council, and it's a very good council, and I'm very privileged in serving with the council. Last year, I know that we were able to pass a budget on time with no property tax increase, and you had 13 individuals that voted the same way in favor. I don't know if that's going to be the same case this time, but we are on schedule to have a budget passed, hopefully, on the 6th, and there's nothing that I see or forecast that would say the opposite.
All right, and Chairman Boyd, you proposed, and the budget has now been amended to take that into account, what looks to be the major amendment and compromise of the budget season that we've had, and that is a cut in the police overtime in order to fund a 1% across the board pay raise for all city employees.
Correct.
Tell me how that works.
Well, basically, we took $2.7 million from police overtime budget. As you all know, police went over budget last year about $11 million. It's a big question. We have all of us debate this issue. There's over $30 million extra in the police budget based on fully funded positions but unfilled position. So we fund police full complement, but unfortunately we know they're short 400 officers. So we looked at the mayor's budget. He increased their overtime budget to $22 million. So we decided to take $2.7 million. We were actually going for a little bit more than that, but we compromised on $2.7 million. That was to put 1% raise across the board for all non-commissioned police officers and all other city employees, to give them 1%. The budget was amended, and I wanted to amend the budget downstairs on second reading. So the budget chair, Chairman Ford, can make sure that on June 6th we have no hiccups, no curveballs being thrown. But we never know. Budget wrap-up is coming. So we never know. Something may be unraveled at budget wrap-up. But right now I'm really surprised. I mean, this group, this council has worked so well together. They ask the right questions, and they have done a lot of research. So it makes our jobs a lot easier. And we, you know, there's questions. A lot of people say, well, you're taking away from public safety. It's not necessarily taking away from public safety, because we have extended that olive branch and told the police department, if you need additional money, come back to us and we will find the money. If we have to take it out of the savings, we will take it somewhere to make sure that you guys are taken care of.
Well, the administration Mayor Jim Strickland's office in agreeing to this as well. They have accepted the overtime cut as well as the across-the-board pay raise. They've also, I think, pledged to come up with an area where they possibly could come up with the additional revenue if the police department says we need more overtime.
That is correct. But Bill, you have to understand one thing. We must get serious about looking at our overall expenditures. The public safety is 68% of our whole total budget. Yeah. So we need to reduce that number down so that we can provide adequate amenities and services to the core constituents in the city of Memphis.
So does public safety, I'm sorry, does public safety include, is that fire and ambulance?
That's fire and police.
So that's not just police.
Correct, okay, correct. But the one thing that I admire about the fire department's budget, her overtime numbers are actually decreasing.
Yes.
And you have to look at their staffing needs at the fire department, and they do a phenomenal job of managing their budget because they have mandatory staffing on the fire department. So they have to be at full complement at every fire station. So I understand, but here's the question. A lot of people say, well, public safety, public safety, public safety. I understand it as well, but our police cannot stop a murder. Right. So a murder is committed, then the police, they're called. So it's kind of one of those things. The perception, we want more police on the street. I think all of us on the council will agree. Yes. We want to see more police officers on the street, but at what cost, and what does it take away from core services, public parks, libraries, community centers? Bring services back to the communities. If you bring those core services back, you start reducing crime, because idle mind is a devil's workshop.
Okay. Councilman Jones, you on the second reading of the budget this past week, you also indicated that there might need to be more discussion. You had in mind a larger amount, I think, for this?
I had in mind a 2% raise. And so I'll review the budget this weekend, perhaps come with try to find some more efficiencies in order to offer the employees a 2% raise. As Chairman Boyd, well, let me first commend Councilman Ford. Under his leadership, the Budget Committee has been we were on target last year. We seem to be on target this year. And then I also commend former Chairman Conrad as well as Chairman Bohr for their leadership. But, Memphis has its financial challenges. We're not looking at a tax increase, but I think that we can find some room someplace we still are dealing with a workforce that had 4.6% pay cuts. And so even a 2% increase doesn't nearly get them back to where they were before the pay cuts. So I just want to address, if we have a happy workforce, they'll deliver services to our constituents.
At one point, the discussion was about a $5 million cut in the police overtime line item. Do you think that's where the money could possibly come?
Well,
2%?
I wouldn't necessarily look at a line item, but as Chairman Boyd indicated, you have 400 unfilled positions. Each one of those 400 unfilled positions, there's a salary price tag to it. So, the reference that I made in the committee meeting is that we're paying for ghosts. I'd rather use that ghost money, as Chairman Boyd indicated, for parks, community centers,
Would the hiring of the 400 be offset by further reductions in overtime? And we've had the police director on, we've talked with the mayor's office on. I mean, there's an increase in overtime in part because they're understaffed. I mean, is the idea that if they staffed up, they got another 300 or 400 police officers, would the budget have to increase to cover those new people, or would the overtime come down enough to employ them?
You can go first.
It's debatable because we've been told, and Councilman Jones, he's done a great job asking this question, so it's real debatable. So they say because of protest, then we saw an increase of overtime. But then we hear on the flip side, well, it's because we're short-staffed, and so we have to have more lieutenants, more sergeants staying over, working overtime to fill full complement of police stations.
Yeah, your thoughts on that?
I would say look at the correlation. If you don't have enough police officers, a sensible individual would say that you would need more overtime. So if we're not able to fill those 400 positions, give or take 400 positions, which takes about $30 million worth of payroll, we would look at the overtime increasing. But we got 2 classes that we are funded for, and I'm glad that we finally got those in because of a cut 4 years ago. We weren't able to recruit and retain. But let's highball and say that the director is able to hire 100 more police officers. Well, you're still a couple hundred short, but you should not be at the same overtime level if you have another 100-foot soldiers. So there's a correlation.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But Martavius, you were real specific in your inquiry on this point. So when you talk about unfilled positions, when the police department brings its budget to the city council as it did this year, those 400 positions that we're talking about, or however many unfilled positions we're talking about, are in that budget proposal.
They are in that budget.
And the money for them is in that.
2,735. And so my contention is, let's leave the overtime amount where it is, $22 million. Let's even say 23. Well, let's talk about the salaries associated with people who will not, well, no, not with people, positions that will not be filled this year.
Realistically,
the police director said that based upon the resignations, retirements, and a new hiring class, we may have a net 50 more police officers.
Right.
So logically, why do we still pay for 400 extra when the amount of actual people filling these positions will only be 50?
Let me shift the conversation slightly. I mean, public safety is huge. It's a huge issue. I assume it's one of, if not the most important issue that you all hear from your constituents on.
Sure.
Well, is the answer 400? I mean, I remember a year ago, I think right after you got on council a year and a half ago, you had some question whether the answer was to go all the way to 2,400. Was more police the answer? You've got other people talking about sky cops and smarter policing. I mean, is 400 a magic number that solves the crime problem? Is that the way we're supposed to look at it?
As Chairman Boyd indicated, police officers, they do a great job, but they respond to calls.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I think that having a greater number of police will do to prevent crime. So we need to look at preventive measures. I look at the number of disenfranchised males that we have here in Memphis. Let's use some of that unfilled position money to provide programming, whether it's counseling, whether it's job training. Let's look at some of those things that would prevent them from going out and committing these type of offenses.
You're agreeing? I mean,
I'm 100% agreeing. 2 months ago, when I brought several individuals to the table that represented whether it was a 2-year college or a 4-year college or the WIN network, remember I did the research where I showed that there were 15,500 unfilled jobs in the city. And those jobs ranged from $11 an hour to almost $40 an hour. If some of those funds can be used for job training and getting people ready who have the desire and will to work, you'll see some of those numbers go down. And I agree with my colleagues, when a police officer goes to the scene, the incident has already happened. If we can get people in school and get people working, you'll see some of those numbers go down.
We could talk, I mean, again, on the budget and on crime, obviously, I mean, and all that, the entire show, but some of the other things, we'll move on a little bit to some of the other issues that you're dealing with at council right now, including Beale Street. And so this last week that Chairman Boyd, that the amount for Beale Street bucks, the cost of the fee to get into Beale Street on the weekends, a controversial program that some are very, say have reduced problems, reduced violence, some stampedes that happen. Other people see at the far other end as a kind of racial profiling. And you reduce the fee from $10 to $5. You've gotten more involved in sort of the council has gotten more involved in some of the other day-to-day management issues with Beale Street. Why? What's going on with Beale Street and the council right now?
Well, the one thing that we wanted to do is establish the order in which Beale Street should fall in the flow. We put a comma right now. We're not putting a period there. We're putting a comma because we're taking a pause and we're taking a holistic approach to Beale Street. It's not the taxpayer's responsibility to support private businesses. And that's the reason why the overall reduction came. We put a task force, and everyone on the council agreed that we should put a task force in place to study and go look at other options that we can probably implement than Beale Street bucks. The recommendation may come back and say, we may need Beale Street bucks. We don't know, but we are going to look at security measures, different technologies that's available to see if we can implement that into Beale Street. But the one thing the reason why we reduced it down to $5 is because Downtown Memphis Commission says it takes $2 to provide the security down there on Beale Street, the wanting and the security guards checking those IDs. So what we're planning on doing right now, we're working on, and I'm writing out and laying out the way our Beale Street Bucks program will be temporarily. We will take the $5, it will go, we will see it, have a report come back to us, remain, the $2 will remain for security. After 1 week or 2 weeks, we look at the balance. We're going to increase the number of security guards down there to make sure that we have adequate security until September, when we come back before the council with our report to say, this is the findings of the task force, these are the recommendations, these are the suggestions, and this is the way we're going to carry the program out.
Your thoughts, Martavis, we talked a little before the show. I mean, is this an appropriate use of council's time to get this far into the management of what is a very important amenity in Memphis, but one of only, many amenities? Do you all need to get that involved in it?
Eric, I don't think we're looking at the management of it.
Okay.
We're just looking at trying to increase the accountability, because we still are talking about a public street, a historic street, one of the most iconic streets in the country. So we're not talking about the day-to-day management of it. Now, we are talking about public safety aspects of it. When you have a large crowd down there, one of the things that I didn't know and I haven't seen exercised is that when part of the pushback about eliminating the Beale Street Bucks program was because of public safety. Well, the police director has the authority to say at any given time, we have too many people on here. So do we need the Beale Street Bucks in order to reduce the crowd control? I would contend not. But when we look at the nature of the Beale Street Bucks as it formerly was, $15,000 was spent to build an app. That does not relate to public safety, if you ask me. There's a signage that also was covered under the Beale Street Bucks. The police director indicated that, and the mayor echoed these sentiments, that we spend about $10,000 to $11,000 in overtime for officers to patrol Beale Street.
Per weekend.
Per weekend, right. 20 weekends, $11,000. We're talking roughly $200,000. But if you look at the financials of the Beale Street Bucks program, $200,000 is rebated back to the merchants based upon the wristbands or vouchers or whatever. So I would contend, if we're going to charge, let's seriously address public safety. Let's increase the number of security officers there. Let's increase the amount of overtime that we have for officers.
Your thoughts on this? I heard you agreeing to some degree.
I do. I agree 100% with Councilman Jones. Let me just piggyback just a little bit. The mayor said two things on Tuesday. He gave 3 reasons, but I'm going to focus on 2 of the reasons why he wanted Beale Street Bucks to stay as is. He said because of public safety, and he said because it would be a burden to the taxpayers if we changed it significantly. I articulated on Tuesday stating that council members are completely for public safety. But when the DMC gave us the breakdown on where this money was actually going, I believe if a person looks at the actual numbers on what goes to public safety and what doesn't, that person would say that from a financial standpoint, things need to change. Let me give you an example. Councilman Boyd mentions that $2 goes to public safety. Let's just make it 3 for the sake of generality. The other 70 cents on the dollar does not necessarily go to public safety. I'll give you one example. Out of the $180,000 that was mentioned in that spreadsheet, 55,000 of it, they're giving away to charity. And there's another percentage that's being done that does not even correlate to public safety. But in somebody's eyes, if you're putting all $10 to public safety, let's see what we're doing. But if 30 cents of the dollar is going to public safety and this organization is doing whatever they want to with the other 70 cents, what we're going to be putting together is necessary so that we can look at the ins and outs, because we want to make sure that public safety is #1 priority.
Right, and right now, the street is managed, you said DMC, that's the Downtown Memphis Commission,
Correct.
right? I guess 2 questions. One, does anyone know offhand how much money is collected through the program? I mean,
last year was over 400,000.
Over 400,000.
Yes.
Okay. And 2, where are you as a council in terms of? I mean, is the DMC, the Downtown Memphis Commission, going to run Beale Street for the foreseeable future? I mean, what next on that?
I think that's the reason why the council is getting involved, because we just removed an organization or
Authority.
Authority,
Tourism
yeah,
Development
authority that was actually supposed to move forward with selecting a management company, which they could not do so. And the council made the recommendation, and we actually moved it downstairs, and we voted on it, and we removed that authority. So I think the one thing about this council is we get down and we get dirty, and we don't mind the controversial issues because we are a result-oriented group. We take actions, and we get results. And some people don't understand our overall logic, but I think we're going to start digging into finding a real management group to come in and manage Beale Street.
Okay. Yes. Bill.
So once you all approve the minutes of this past week's meeting and the cut in the cover charge to $5 is formally in place, I go to Beale Street the next Saturday night at 10:30 and I pay $5 to get in. Do I get vouchers or the coupons with it's straight up $5
Straight
cover?
$5 to get into Beale Street, correct?
Okay, all right. In terms of the task force, you wanted a small group that was going to work quickly on this. So
Correct.
tell me who's on the task force.
So far, we have president of the Hotel Motel Association in Memphis. We have DMC, Downtown Memphis Commission, Terrence Patterson, Mike Rawlings, police director, or his designee, the mayor and his designee, and Kevin Kane. And we'll do a merchant. We'll have a person of the Merchants Association, and then a merchant that's a non-member of the Merchants Association, because I want both sides. I don't want it to be biased based upon what the Merchants Association feel, but I want a person that's a non-member of the Merchants Association to give their input as well.
You all got a legal opinion from the council's attorney, Alan Wade, and you all voted to discuss that publicly, and you did at this past week's session. Alan has declined to provide a written copy of it, citing the pending litigation, because there is a federal lawsuit over Beale Street Bucks and this specific point on it. But based on your discussion of that legal opinion, is it legal for the city to charge a fee for a public street?
It's debatable. It's legal if the street is actually closed with a special use permit. But just to go, and the leaseholders there only control the property in front of their building to the sidewalk.
Correct.
The street is controlled by the city of Memphis. The mayor referenced Memphis in May. He referenced the art festival, how they charge to get in those. But if you think about it, those are filed through the permits office through a special use permit. Correct. The council never gave the police director nor the merchants authority
Correct.
to close and charge for Beale Street.
Right.
So that's it. And if you look at section 452 of our city charter, it states that the Memphis City Council has the authority to sell, lease, donate, and get rid of any properties that we own. Simple.
Let's go. There's more to talk on, but we've just got 3 minutes left, and I want to hit a couple other budget items right now. Let's start with pensions, OPEB, post-employment benefits, which was such a big issue, and which drove, some would say, this reduction in the police department, which changes to benefits and so on. But the state mandated some years ago now that the city needs to increase, and all cities, all municipalities need to increase their commitments to pensions and so on. Where are we on that? Are we on track to meet the state's requirement?
According to the mayor, we are not on track. We're ahead.
Okay.
I believe that we're supposed to be at 83% funding. I believe he said we're at 88%. I believe the deadline is 2020 to be fully funded. I remember a few months ago, I showed council members if they wanted to revert back to how the defined benefit looked and how the pension looked, how big the tax increase would be to our citizenry. But it's like what Mr. Jones and Mr. Boyd said. And I'm just going to honestly say this. I can't go back into District 6. You're one of my constituents, as a matter of fact.
Right.
I can't come back to you and say, look, I have to go up on your taxes $600, but guess what? I'm not going to add anything to your park. You're not going to get one extra book for your library. Your community center is not going to get anything for our youth. But all this money is going to go to a populace where 65% of those individuals don't even pay 1 cent of property tax, but you do.
Yeah. And again, we could talk more about all this, but just with a couple minutes left, I'll turn to you. The interim director of MATA has a proposal to increase funding. If he can get another $30 million, he can do major improvements to MATA. I think everybody agrees there are improvements that need to happen. He's talking about all routes getting to from less than an hour. Does MATA need more funding, and can the city afford it?
I think definitely MATA needs more funding. Public safety is an important part, especially in a city with a high number of impoverished people. But I think that my colleague, Councilman Ford, has a great idea of proposing a gas tax so that we can find a dedicated funding source to fund MATA. The taxpayers, based on the rate of taxes that we charge, ad valorem tax, cannot afford to fund MATA at the rate of which the interim director wants us to. We're struggling to give them $5 million, so $6 million. So it's a struggle. I do agree, but I think it needs to be an identified, defined funding source.
Thoughts on that? Yeah, I saw you smiling a little bit.
Additional dedicated funding source,
Right.
because you know, as the interim director talked about a dedicated funding source, well, I was saying to myself the entire time, well, you're getting money every year from Memphis. That's pretty dedicated.
Councilman Ford, are you going to go again for a gas tax hike referendum?
You had the bus riders organization come on Tuesday. They said they had 2,000 signatures. If they can make those signatures turn into votes in the near future, and
I'm going to cut you off.
You're going to cut me off? Then we'll see what happens.
All right, that is all the time we have. Join us again next week.